Dave Aranda is the what choice for UCLA? Perfect or pass? We'll discuss.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, joined by Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor as we continue our coaching series, Who is the Right Candidate for UCLA? This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and right now new customers can bet $5, and if you bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets used across the app. Download the app today. Thanks for making this show your first listen every day, and welcoming back all these coaching guys, and let's talk about it here today. We're going, is Dave the right guy? Is he the perfect fit? What are his strengths and weaknesses? And is it even likely? Cam, lay it on us. Dave's a good coach, mediocre coach. What's it like at Baylor?
It kind of depends on the day, Zach. Honestly, you ask me week by week, but overall, you look at his record, he's a mediocre coach. You know, he's 2 games over 500 in his time at Baylor. That is what it is. Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are. And obviously, he's the top end of Dave Aranda. There's been some real success. Probably Baylor's best football season ever came with Dave Aranda as their head football coach. They were 12-2. They won the Sugar Bowl. They won the Big 12. They finished in the final the postseason poll in the top 5 in all of college football. Like, you can't take that away from him. But the 4 years since has been up and down. 2 losing seasons in there. 3 out of his 5 full seasons at Baylor have been losing seasons. Nice bounce back last year after starting 2-4. And again, we're just kind of bouncing back and forth this year at 3-2. So been some good, been plenty more bad, and a lot of kind of disappointing.
And the big thing that you start to see with these UCLA coaching ties, if a dude was born or is from Southern California, they're really going to connect him to the UCLA job. Dave Aranda is one of those guys. We've seen Jonathan Smith, one of those guys. Is he a SoCal guy after, being in Baylor? He's bounced around the college football world, none of which in the last 15, 20 years, I believe, has been LA or SoCal related, other than maybe Cal early in his career. Does he fit the SoCal lifestyle beyond just the coaching?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we've heard a lot of that in kind of the preliminary talks of Dave Aranda and UCLA. I'll say this. I think for sure still fits that lifestyle. One of the complaints that Baylor fans have and have had for years is Dave's kind of demeanor. He's not a yeller at all. We hear about it. We very rarely see it. He always comes in with the same tone and tenor for every post-game press conference, good, bad, or otherwise. He's got a very dry sense of humor. He'll crack a couple of jokes here and there, but for the most part, it's very quiet. In fact, this is something you'll appreciate. I play Dave Aranda quotes on the show a couple of times every week, and it's really tough to embed into the podcast because he's so much quieter than me or anyone else I have on the pod. So it's really difficult. Like, I got to screen record and turn it up all the way. So he is still very laid back, very relaxed, which I know comes, everyone's like, well, that's the Southern California in him. But that Athletic article that first put it out there was saying, he went to his first date with his wife, was at a UCLA football game, and they kind of played up that angle of him being a Californian guy. But to your point, like, he hasn't been coaching in California in 25 years, like, he's got 3 kids. This is not like a homecoming for any of them. They've lived in Utah and Wisconsin and Baton Rouge and now Waco, Texas. Like, that's definitely, home, so to speak, for Dave Aranda, but that's not like, oh, finally bringing the family back, going to go connect with their old friends. Like, that's a little bit overblown, I think, when it comes to this. So yeah, Cal Lutheran was the last time, and that's obviously where he played as well as having a year coaching, but he's lived in Lubbock more recently than he's lived in Southern California. So it's not, I think, what they're trying to make it out to be.
I mean, you bring up the point about a date at a UCLA football game. You could have kind of a very quiet, alone date at a UCLA football game right now. You would not be interrupted. He could be in the corner And I don't even think anybody would bother him at a current UCLA game.
Yeah, you bring out the
Bowl.
introverts in you, and you could still rock on up to the Bruins football game, man.
That's unfortunate right now. But here's the thing. You've got UCLA coaches like Deshaun Foster, very quiet. Chip Kelly didn't want to put in the work. Does Dave Aranda put in the work? Does he have that personality beyond the laid-back approach? Is he louder than Deshaun Foster? Everybody had the laughing at Deshaun Foster moment in the Big Ten media days. Chip is kind of, unique when it came to the recruiting. UCLA needs a personality, a recruiting rock star, a good X's and O's coach. Does he have some of those qualities?
I think he does, actually. And the beginning of his tenure at Baylor, the recruiting was not good at all. And he didn't really capitalize off that 2021 season really at all. But the last, I'd say 16 months or so, the last 2 recruiting classes, including this year's, have been a huge step up for Dave Aranda. And he's gotten some good recruiters on his staff. Keenan Hall, mainly a guy who came from SMU before last season. And they've really stepped up their recruiting game. And all the recruits say the same thing, like not just the guy who recruited them, the position coach or whatever it may be, but that they love Dave. Like they want to play for Dave. And it's tough for the fans to see, because we don't see that side of him. We see a very quiet, much like Deshaun Foster, a very quiet Dave Aranda all the time, one who doesn't smile a lot, but also isn't throwing clipboards anywhere. So he has had some momentum in recruiting. In fact, even if this Baylor season kind of goes haywire and they're 500, I think a lot of fans would side with Dave in terms of the momentum he's built on the recruiting trail as a reason to keep him around. So yeah, it's somewhere in between. Like he's not going to be a rah-rah guy. He's not going to look like Dabo Swinney out there on the sidelines or Kirby Smart or one of those guys. But I think he would probably put in more work than a Chip Kelly or a Jimbo Fisher, to see one that we saw at A&M. I mean, the lazy stories about him were just legendary. Dave is not that. Like, I think he is a guy who puts in the work. I think he's a good, honest guy. It's just the results on the field have just not been there. They've not been consistent. The only thing that's been consistent is that they don't play well at home and they don't start games well. So a lot of people will point to that as being like, well, if he's not yelling in the locker room, how are they going to come out and be ready to play? So there are those concerns. But in terms of getting in a living room, and this was actually kind of legendary his time at LSU as well, which obviously they had Ed Orgeron, larger than life personality. He dominated recruiting in the SEC and has done a very good job the last year plus at Baylor. But in terms of the personality thing, I hate to tell you, it's not that far off from Deshaun Foster in terms of a really quiet, reserved guy. But I think a clean slate would probably do wonders for Dave Aranda.
And we're going to talk more about that next. Is this a strength fit? Is this a weakness fit? Is Dave Aranda just a career defensive coordinator just waiting out his days at Baylor? That's a tough question we're going to ask next on Locked On UCLA. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver the tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors, and each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. And what I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost where you need it. You can always reach your favorite flavor, and it's always refreshing because it gives you that quick lip before a busy day. For me, I was just out at the theme parks the other day. I'm tired. I need that pick-me-up. And you know what 5-hour energy does? Gets me through a 12-hour Disney day. Craziness, right? Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store or online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Well, we've got Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor still with us here in Locked On UCLA. Our coaching shows seemingly very popular when it comes to who's the next UCLA coach. I wasn't named to that, coaching searching committee, but maybe we're doing their job for them, kind of going with each host discussing. Yeah,
you'll be on the next one, that's for sure.
If there's a next
hopefully
one
it's
soon.
A while for you. Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully I'm middle-aged by the next time that one happens, and we'll be good, and we won't even need that. Or I'll be the coach. I don't know anything that well. So as I posed the question before the break, Cam, is Dave Aranda, is he just a defensive coordinator posing as a head coach? He had success at LSU, success at Wisconsin, brief stints at Hawaii and Utah State prior to that, had success there. But is that a strength of his team, the defense, or is it something that's gone awry since he's become the head coach? That's always a fear. Coordinator becoming head coach and they lose their strength. What does it seem like from your perspective?
Well, I think the latter part is unfortunately what we're looking at right now. They have not been a strong defensive team each of the last 3 seasons, 2+ seasons, if we're including this one. I mean, they played an Oklahoma State team on Saturday that was the 115th ranked offense in America, and Oklahoma State.
There's worse.
There are worse. And Oklahoma State tied their season high for points in a game and set a new season high for yards in a game. Like it was like they gave up 450 yards to them. And again, it was one of those where you weren't in danger of losing, but you're like, what are we doing here? And it's just been statistically one of the worst defenses in Power 4 this year. They cannot stop the run at all. And this is a recurring problem for this team year after year is Dave Aranda's defense. And by the way, last year and this year, he has been the defensive play caller. He's the only head coach at FBS who also calls the defensive plays. And it's just not working, man. He's gone through a couple of different DCs and it's still not getting any better. Now, that said, my biggest fear. So, Zach, I called for his job 2 years ago at the end of the 2023 season. I've set an ultimatum for him on my show this year that if they don't win 9 games, I'm out again. But the thing that my biggest fear about Dave Aranda is that he is Bill Belichick and we are the Cleveland Browns. And that he's just going to go somewhere after this. He's going to have a clean slate. He's going to have it all figured out, right? He's going to know, he's going to have the answers to the test, and he's just going to go to the college football playoff every other year with, be it a UCLA or an NC State or somewhere, somewhere that's
Virginia
just
Tech, somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere that's kind of ready to take a big step that hasn't taken it yet. That is a huge, huge fear for me. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I think if he was just the defensive coordinator, man, I still think he'd be dynamite. Like all of the numbers leading up to his time at Baylor proves that. And really the first 2 years at Baylor, even one of those years where they were pretty bad at 2-7 in the COVID year, they had a stout defense and they had a top 10 defense in the country the next year when they won the Sugar Bowl. So I still think he can do that, man. Like I do. It's just clearly not happening with him as the head coach right now, where he gets to control the scheme, the play calling, the players they're bringing in. It's still not working. Baylor's had some injuries this year, but yeah, if I had to guess, I think he's just a really good defensive coordinator. Rex Ryan made it to back-to-back AFC championship games. Is that the Sugar Bowl equivalent in college football? Maybe.
I mean, it's like they had the success too early. You have it 2 years later, you're in the playoff and you maybe get a win or two. Like that team could have made it to a Final Four 2 years later. They could have made it to the CFP top 4 if that happens during this 12-team era. I think that team was good enough. And if you think about it, that was Aranda's highlight and the beginning of the decline for Mike Gundy's teams because they didn't recover from the dude getting tackled on the goal line. Like it's almost you're seeing like the rise, the fall, and then also the later fall from Aranda. But I think there's potential for success. And the problem with that is the Big 12 is as wide open as it's going to get. The Big 10 is as competitive as it's ever going to be. Is that the right situation to move from that situation where it's wide open in a conference to there's clearly Goliaths in the Big 10? Could he stand next to some of those behemoths in the conference?
Yeah, it's tough for me to say yes, because I haven't seen him do it in the Big 12, and I'm not here to say that we're all the bunch of pores here in the Big 12. I hear that enough, but it's not as good as the top of the Big 10. It's just not. And I know, Big 10 defensive style of football, maybe Dave Aranda fits in there, but again, the defensive numbers are not coming through at all in this conference. And it did the first couple of years. So again, he's capable of it. So to me, the fit just doesn't really make sense. I know he's from Southern California. We've been over that, but in terms of the style of football that he has shown as a head coach, they don't play complementary football. They don't do well on defense, which is his side of the ball. I just don't see exactly where the fit is in the Big 10 for a guy who's middling in the Big 12 was all of a sudden going to make someone better in the Big 10. I think from an outsider's perspective, UCLA would really want a program builder, right? And I don't know that Dave Aranda is a program builder. I think he's a good football coach in that, we were just talking about, like, I think he could still be a really good defensive coordinator if that was all he was focusing on. But in terms of a program builder, I can't say he is that.
How much do you think he was being built up from Matt Rule's tenure into his success to 2020 to 21?
Quite a bit. And some people take this, some Baylor fans take this as a negative, but they won that Sugar Bowl in the Big 12 championship largely with Matt Rule's players. Like, there was one real contributor on that team who was an Aranda guy. It was Siaki Ika, who we brought in as a nose tackle from LSU. But other than that, they were all Matt Rule guys. And that's a bit of a knock on his legacy now. But, if we're comparing one to the other, like, Matt Rule had these guys and didn't win with them, didn't win the big ones with them, didn't beat a single ranked team in his time at Baylor, and Dave did it 5 times in that second year. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough to look at that team and not say that it's all Matt Rule guys that he won with. That definitely helped. And it looked at first, we justified it as kind of what I just said. He won with Matt Rule's guys. Matt Rule didn't win the big ones with those guys. And that Dave was running this kind of NFL style of practice where he was making these good players into great players. But that doesn't work when you're bringing in your own guys and they're 19-year-old freshmen. It doesn't work like that.
They're not NFL ready. There's a reason why they take a while to get to the NFL.
Correct. And we just haven't seen them really develop. Here and there are absolutely some stories. Their leading receivers, a former walk-on who came in 5 years ago. The quarterback, who's the best in the Big 12, came in as a transfer after his freshman year at Mississippi State. So there are some stories of development, but they're few and far between.
Well, we're going to discuss next. Is it likely numbers-wise with, some optics of the buyout? And you've convinced me. I want Dave Aranda, but there's a caveat. Next on Locked On UCLA. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just a new name. And why it matters is because every missed call is money left on the table. And whether it's the customers, all those conversations counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines phone communications and customer communications that works right through an app on your phone or computer. No more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And maybe you're just going to have to use it against UCLA. I'm sorry to say it, but the Bruins, they have huge numbers against them. It's a big spread between the Bruins and Penn State, over 3 scores. You want to check it out if you're a new customer. Put $5 down. You might make $300 to use across the FanDuel app. What are you waiting for? Use FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, Cam, this is how I want Dave Aranda in UCLA blue and gold. This is how I want him. I want Baylor to fire him. I don't advocate guys looking for the job. I actually have. That's a lie. But, I want.
And if it gets bad, by the way, on my episode, I'm going to be like, look, other Locked On hosts are ready for Dave Aranda to be fired. Like, it's time,
I mean, after he started 6-3 in 2022, he went, 3-13 in his next 16 games before getting a winning.
Right.
Yeah. And then he had a winning season. Exactly right. And then here we go. So what I want from Dave, he loses his job at Baylor. UCLA hires, enter big name profile coach, whatever it is. And I want him as the defensive coordinator because UCLA obviously needs to fill out coordinators. You need good guys. Obviously, as much as Akaika Malloy was loved at UCLA, I highly doubt there's any return there. I would think Dave Aranda, who's looking for a spot, 2 years, maybe off the spotlight as a head coach, dominate UCLA. I think he'd be primed for another head coaching job if you go to a UCLA as a defensive coordinator, dominate, improve, you still got the juice and go somewhere else. If he's just a long-term defensive coordinator, maybe that's the case. What do you think?
I think that's realistic. Very realistic might be a stretch just because I don't have any certainty that Baylor's going to fire him, and Baylor could still end up going 8-4 this year. And if that's the case, they won't fire him, even though it's probably a little bit below what we expected this year. But I think that would be the best case scenario for UCLA, right? I mean, you bring in big fish kind of name. Maybe it is a reunion with Ed Orgeron from the LSU days. And that's
one national title.
Dynamite team. Yeah, man. And all those first round picks on the defensive side, that would be probably a good thing for Dave Aranda. And certainly that's the kind of job he's going to be in for if he gets fired this year, right? He's not going to the commentary booth. He's probably not going to get another head coaching job in a Power 4. It could happen. If UCLA is on the table, I guess it could happen. But I think that would probably be a natural kind of landing spot for Dave Aranda and for UCLA. And again, I think he could be still a really good DC. And to your point, that's probably a good refresh for him of hey, this is my thing. This is what I can do. I can control this. And then I can be a head coach somewhere else after, 2-3 years. And then I could really be cooking with gas because I know what to do and what not to do. So I think that's more realistic than him just being hired away from Baylor as the head coach.
I've been seeing, many coaches leaving head coaching spots to be coordinators. Obviously, I think leaving Baylor's a stretch, but we did see Chip Kelly go from UCLA to offensive coordinator at Ohio State. So I think we've seen it all. So for some reason, he's like, I want to step away and just coach. And maybe it is a coach, going to UCLA in some aspects. Maybe that could be a good reunion. But I think the dream is somehow this collapses and he has to come in a lot cheaper of a price. And he comes in and that would be good. Or he does really well and UCLA is like, I want him as a head coach, and they bring it out. What are the numbers that you know of, Cam, for a potential buyout? What are those numbers looking like from what your knowledge is? I know Baylor's a little tough. It's private. It's not a public UC like UCLA is. So what's it looking like?
Yeah, so what I've heard through some sources is somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 million for a buyout, which is, I would say, sizable for a school like Baylor and a contract that they could sign him to, that would be the buyout. So that's the numbers we've heard. He signed an extension after that 2021 season. And so he's here through, I think, 28 or 29. I should know that as the host of Locked On Baylor, but here we are.
You wanted him gone 2 years ago. So
I know. So I wasn't really looking past that, I guess. But yeah, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 million. So it's middle of the pack when it comes to big name head coaches. I know we've heard plenty about the UCLA athletics deficit. So I don't know how that might feel like twice as much than it would for some other schools. But that's certainly the numbers that we're hearing. It would take a price. But but also, Zach, let's play it out. Let's say Baylor 7-5 this year. That's a disappointment, right? This is a team that could have won 9 or 10 games coming in this year. 7-5 would be a disappointment, and it would probably have a lot to do with Dave Aranda's defense. If that's the case, do you think Baylor's probably like, maybe we don't fire him, but we eat a little bit of this buyout? We just, now it's $7 million, and UCLA go and take him. That could happen, that could, where they get some money. They don't have to be like, oh, we fired him, he wanted to go somewhere else. And it kind of works out pretty well for both sides. It's a long shot, but it's possible.
It is possible. I just think, it's weird because it seems like it's two schools that's a little pricey to get rid of them. It's a little pricey to bring them in. It doesn't seem like it's a marriage fit in coaching switch heaven, other than the fact that he has to collapse and they have to pay a hefty penny to get rid of him, it seems like. And that seems like it's a big number for Dave to get rid of him at this stage of his career. Coaches are earning big money to get fired. Obviously, there's record numbers, and that's not what Dave would be. It's just, you're seeing UCLA, they overpaid for Deshaun Foster to get rid of him. And maybe that would be the same for Dave Aranda.
Yeah, and we're seeing it all across college football. Like you said, obviously Jimbo, to bring him back into it, that's another planet. That's unbelievable. But it happened. But yeah, Aranda would be like that. Neil Brown was like that at West Virginia, another one we saw in the Big 12, where it was like, we don't know how much we can win with him. We're not confident we can win the big ones with him, but he's also too expensive to get rid of. We just can't send him off all willy-nilly. So it's definitely kind of a hurdle for Baylor in this sense. And so maybe the UCLA interest does come
as a blessing.
Yeah, that could be the case. Baylor, I complain about him, but Baylor Athletics, maybe they were saying last year, I guess we're going to have to keep him on. They won 6 straight games. I guess we're going to have to keep him on. And maybe they're looking for something like that. I don't know. I haven't heard that, but it could be a blessing in disguise, that interest.
The guys who negotiate these coaching contracts are geniuses. Like, you can get fired and get paid so much money, and the fact that you get to keep a job because you're getting too much pay, and then next thing you know, you're going to get more pay for not coaching. It just seems like I want that guy in my corner negotiating any future salary. We need that guy in our corner. Whoever that guy is, we need that guy.
There was like so many agents. I read a great article about it a couple years ago. The agents that just gave up doing players, like, college players that were ready to make the jump to the NFL or the NBA. And they said, no, you got to start representing coaches, man. You got to do that. And, they're all the highest paid employees in their states for the most part.
And they get fired in 2 to 3 years now.
Buyouts. Yeah. It's more turnover than ever. And the prices are higher than ever. And the contracts are as strict as ever. So it's actually a beautiful spot to be in as an agent to rep a coach, man. That's perfect.
So I think the biggest thing for UCLA, I think perfect scenario would be Dave as the defensive coordinator. Now that would come with a hefty price for Baylor. I wonder what that would look like for UCLA, but it doesn't seem like the timing financially is really going to work for these two sides unless UCLA, which I've said before on this podcast, if they want to be legit and they say Dave's the guy, that money shouldn't be a problem. You go get your guy. If you want to be a real program, which UCLA is trying to prove with this new coaching searching committee that Martin Jarman, however much power he's been given to make this decision under Julio Frank, the chancellor. If you want a guy, then you go get Dave. It doesn't matter how much millions, you go get him, and the money will return on investment pretty soon, I would think, if you actually build something legitimate. But are there any other guys you would think, crazy or not crazy, that you think UCLA should go after over or besides Dave?
Yeah, it's interesting because I really like your thought process of him coming in as a defensive coordinator, right? So it could be for a big name guy like an Orgeron that he's worked with, or Urban Meyer, who clearly respects Dave Aranda. But he could also really help, a group of 5 coach that comes up to that next level. Some of them who don't have experience in the Power 4, whomever that may be. Like, it could really help to have a former head coach as your DC kind of
Dan Mullen with Dave Aranda's defense.
That's not bad, man. That's not bad. It feels like, I guess you could probably say this every year, but it feels like this year, like we're just, the G5 coaches just haven't been there very long. Obviously, Dan Mullen's had a couple of other big time coaching jobs.
It's like, right? Do you want to play D&D? No, I'm not talking Dungeons and Dragons. Dave Aranda and Dan Mullen football. Let's go. D&D. Sign me up.
Hey, I mean, that might not be a bad play. It really might, because, I mean, you look at some of the other ones, they just haven't been there very long. Like a guy like G.J. Kinney from Texas State, which is a name that pops up a lot. And whenever people want Dave Aranda fired at Baylor, they talk about G.J. Kinney.
Jason
Clark Lee. Is that an interesting one from Vanderbilt? He is a Vandy alum, so that's difficult. But
I mean, they threw you
can win more
Sitake's name. They threw Kalani Sitake's name, and he's an alum of BYU. I think that's kind of crazy. And then you mix in, as I said, Jason Eck. He hasn't been in New Mexico long. He just made the jump up from FCS, but he put it on UCLA. He's got the personality, I think, to work with it. But you need more than 1 year, I think. But unless you got to swing. Sometimes at this stage, you have to swing a little more. The old guys don't want to do this. Chip Kelly didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And now he's in the NFL.
Yeah. And this could be an absolute proving ground for someone like Eck. That was a name that I find so fascinating because he's so fresh off FCS. He did pretty well in the FCS, got to, I think, the quarters of the semis with Idaho. How about Kenya Monalolo? It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna bring a lot of excitement to UCLA.
And he was at UCLA. He was at UCLA for a minute.
Yeah,
in like a non-coaching capacity, if I'm not mistaken.
He was consultants.
Yeah, consultants for a year, and then he might have had a bigger role, and then said, "Wait, I can go be a head coach. Let me go do that."
Like the resume is still pretty good. You know, he's still like 25 games over 500 for his career.
With the triple option. Like,
and a
with
bunch
the
of
triple option.
a couple 10-win seasons at Navy. Like, you know what I mean? He won Conference Coach of the Year. It's not the sexiest name out there, but the dude can build. You know, he's done it with hurdles, like you said, triple option Navy. It's one of the toughest places to recruit at in all of college football. So that's an interesting one. I really think Clark Lee is a really intriguing one at Vanderbilt because, again, he is an alum. SEC Coach of the Year last year. They're what, 5-0? Vanderbilt? Like Vanderbilt, you know? And
I mean, their quarterback's like 30 years old, but
yeah, then that helps. I mean, we could take some 30-year-olds at UCLA, I think, if it's going to win you some ball games. But is UCLA a place where they're like, where coach is like, you know what, though, I can win more there. I could do better there. I can compete more there.
As much as UCLA has to be convinced that this guy is going to come over and win, they have to prove the guy they want to hire, their top choice, that they're willing to put in the investment. Now, if you've read the Athletic article or even the Yahoo Sports one, which I was just reading too, it seems like it's going to be both ways. UCLA has to prove as an institution they're willing to put in the work, and the coach has to be willing to put in the work because Chip Kelly didn't. It is a two-way street. They need good leadership atop, and that's where Julio Frank, the new chancellor, comes in. That's where the question marks about the AD comes in for UCLA with Martin Jarmans, who just got an extension prior with the interim chancellor, with the new guy already hired for years and millions. That makes no sense. And now he's making a new head coaching hire that he botched last time. It's a huge conundrum that UCLA is stuck in. But one head coach can make them all look like geniuses, even if they don't deserve it.
Yep. If the coach is good, everything else is fine, right? It's kind of like quarterback in the NFL. If the quarterback's good, none of the rest of it matters. It really doesn't. And that's kind of what UCLA is facing right now.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It doesn't seem like Dave Aranda's the guy, but he could help UCLA if the situation presents itself as a defensive coordinator. I think, would you agree? That seems like a perfect fit with UCLA if the situation comes up. But otherwise...
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, there's no guarantee that he's a great one again, but it's certainly worth whatever risk is there as a defensive coordinator. His record there is impeccable still. Like, I mean, he had top 10 defenses at Wisconsin and at LSU. He knows the Big Ten, obviously, through the Wisconsin trip, you know, like, and he knows California. Like, absolutely, to me, that would be worth the risk.
It would be worth the risk. We'll just see if it's actually his head coach or if this is just all a farce. That's Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate the knowledge dropping ball on Dave. And I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, Locked On UCLA. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Tell me your thoughts on what we've been discussing with all these coaches. We'll find some more big names come through as more jobs are becoming open in the beginning of the season. Like, we're not even at the midway point. We're through the first quarter, and there's already a few head coaching jobs open and more to come. We'll discuss that and more in the next Locked On UCLA episode. Thanks for coming through. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.